be zeicha to make more siyumim and more simchas. Okay, so we're going to go back to a lima that we started with the beginning of the year. We took a little bit of a break for Shayvim. It turned into a little bit longer of a break than I thought, but Baruch Hashem to go back to Sefer Yehoshua. So we were up to the beginning, right in the beginning of Perek Vav of the 6th chapter of Sefer Yehoshua, and it's really again, not only is it the beginning of a new parak, but it's really the beginning of a new story. So just to sort of bring us back into Sefer Yehoshua a little bit. So what we saw so far in Sefer Yehoshua, just a little bit of the necessary piece of information to go on to the 6th parak, is that Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, as you know, the 7th day of Adar. Yehoshua ben Nun is then given the leadership. He's given the reins of the Jewish people, and Yehoshua ben Nun takes us, with Hashem's command and so on. He takes us over the Yarden. We cross over the Jordan River, and we're now encamped in front of the first city that we're about to conquer, the city of Yericho. And that's pretty much where we're holding right now in Perek Vav, in the 6th chapter, that they're about to begin the conquest of the first city, of the city of Yericho. That's basically what we saw so far. So now, on the side of the page that you have the Navi, there's one side of Navi, the other side is a few Marmar Kaimis. So this is not the entire chapter 6. It's not the entire Perek Vav, but it's most of it. So I'm not going to go through every single pasuk, but just a little bit. Now, what was unique to the city of Yericho, before we go inside to read a few pasukim inside, what was unique to the city of Yericho is that, in a certain sense, it was the strongest, most difficult city in all of Eretz Yisrael to conquer. It was most opposing. First of all, Chazal already tell us that in the city of Yericho, you had Eretz Yisrael at the time was not one. It was not one country. It was 36 little kingdoms throughout all of Eretz Yisrael. You had seven nations: Canaan, Prizi, all the different nations of Canaan. But there were like 36 city-states, sort of. But they all sort of joined together in the city of Yericho. Yericho was sort of that. It was one city that united all the city-states of Eretz Yisrael. So in a certain sense, it was the most difficult to attack. You attack Yericho, you're attacking the entire country, and every single city-state had some soldiers placed in Yericho. There was embassies in Yericho, so it was a major city. Not only that, but also the fortifications of Yericho were very, very intense. Yericho was known at the time for its walls. The walls of Yericho, it was not just Mukaf Chaima, not just surrounded by a nice little wall, but the walls of Yericho were known to be extremely thick. So much so that if you remember, in earlier chapters of Yericho, there's a whole Maisa of Yehoshua ben Nun sending spies into Yericho first, and the whole thing that took place with Rachav Hazayna. Rachav was she was a woman that took care of the spies when they went in to house them and so on, and her house was in the wall of Yericho. That's how thick the wall was, that you could carve out a house inside of it. So we're talking about very, very thick fortifications. So we're going to see right now, I'll tell you outside what the story is, and then we'll see it inside together, a few psukim, is that the Rabbanu Shalom wanted to make the following miracle. The Rabbanu Shalom did not want the Jewish people to just break through the wall and take care of the city and leave the wall intact. The first Inyan of conquest of Eretz Yisrael really, and of Yericho particularly, was to destroy the walls. Not really destroy them, I should say. What happened was miraculous is that they sunk into the ground. Even in Eretz Yisrael today, I mean, it's a dangerous place to go, but you could find some remnant of the original walls of Yericho, thick walls. And that miraculously happened, that the walls just sank into the ground, turning Yericho basically from a walled city into an open city. That's pretty much what happened. And the Jewish people go in and take care of the rest. How was it? What was the procedure in order to have this miracle that the walls should sink in? So the pasuk tells us that the Rabbanu Shalom tells Yehoshua ben Nun that what he should do is take the Aron, right? Have Kahanim carry the Aron. Four Kahanim carry the Aron, with a few Kahanim in front, Kahanim in back, and 7 Kahanim altogether should be proceeding with the Aron, each one carrying a shofar. Okay, that's going to be the Kahanim, and then you'll have the soldiers of the Jewish people also with the Aron, and they're all going to make a hakafa. You make a kaf around the city of Yericho for 7 days consecutively. Now, by the way, this wasn't just around the 7 days. It was Sunday. The first day was a Sunday. So Sunday, the Aron is carried by Kahanim, being escorted by the soldiers of the Jewish people, the Kahanim carrying shofars. They go around the city, and they blow a tekiah. Fine. And they go back to the camp, and that's it. They go Monday, same procedure. Tuesday, same procedure, all the way till Shabbos. When it comes to Shabbos, then it's different. They make seven hakafas with the shofars, blowing tekiyas. And by the seventh hakafa, by the seventh surrounding, going around the walls, the seventh time, then Yehoshua ben Nun proclaims, he gives a signal to the Jewish people. Then while the Kahanim are blowing a tekiyah, the Jewish people start to blow a trua. Okay, so there's a trua happening while the tekiyah is being blown, and then the walls will sink in, and the Jewish people are able to enter into the city. Now, besides that, Yehoshua ben Nun also proclaims that what's going to happen is that everyone should just know going in. It's interesting, you have to know this going in, is that when you conquer the city of Yericho is going to be dedicated as hekdesh. It's going to be dedicated as consecrated for the Rebbeinu Shloim, and all the money and loot and all that stuff, property that's going to be in Yericho, it's not going to be settled by the Jewish people, which is one of the cities that we live in. It's going to be dedicated to the Beis Hamikdash, to the Mishkan. All the money is going to be dedicated over there, and that's what's going to be with Yericho. Now that's foreshadowing a story that's going to come a little bit later of one particular Jew by the name of Achan that disobeyed that and stole some of the money, and it caused problems. That's something that we'll see later on. Now, why is it that Yehoshua ben Nun makes that proclamation that the city has to be dedicated to Hashem? So it's interesting. Chazal tell us that he saw this. See, Hashem never told him to do that. That was his own idea. But Chazal say that the reason why he was inspired to do that is because he realized, Bashkacha Pratis, that the time that the walls are sinking in and the city is able to be conquered is on Shabbos. It's on Shabbos, right? Because it was a 7-day process, and it began on Sunday. It means the 7th day with the 7 hakafas, and the Tekiyah and the Trua was on a Shabbos. So Yehoshua ben Nun said, if it's happening b'Hashgacha, such a thing on Shabbos, Shabbos is Shabbos Kodesh. So Memelo Yerichai should be also Yerichai HaKodesh. It should be separated for the Rebbeinu Shalom just like Shabbos is. So just like Shabbos, we don't take it for ourselves. We don't do malach. We don't do work. So Yerichai also should be dedicated to Hashem. That's what's going on. Now let's see a little bit inside. That's the basic story. What we're going to see, what we're going to see inside. We're not going to get, like I said, we're not going to go through all the psukim, but just a few to get the basic idea. So again, pasuk Aleph in the beginning of Perek Vav. The Yerichai Segeres and Musugeres. Yerichai was locked, mamish locked and inaccessible. The Bnei Yisrael, because of the Jewish people. And others, besides the wall, but obviously the wall had entrances and exits. Otherwise it's not functional. But those entrances and exits were mamish locked. There was no entering at all. Everything was on lockdown because of the Jewish people that were encamped outside the city. Ein yotzev ein ba, no one in, no one out. Vayomer Hashem el Yehoshua, so Hashem says to Yehoshua ben Nun, Re'ei nesati biyodcha. It's interesting. Like right now, it looks like impenetrable, and Hashem says, "Look, I've already given you Yericho. Re'ei nesati b'fneicha biyodcha es Yericho. Look, I've already given into your hands the city of Yericho, Ves Malka, its king, Gibor Yechayil, all of its soldiers, all of its powerful warriors. It's all mamish in your hands already." So it's by the way, it's also like something to keep in mind. It looks impenetrable. It looks like it's the opposite of Hatzlacha. The Rebbeinu says this is already just a joke. This is already just going through the motions. It's already yours. In Shemayim, Yericho is already yours. So what should you do to conquer the city? V'sabaisem es ha'ir. What you should do is surround the city, circle the city. Kol anshe melchama, all the soldiers that you have. Hakef es ir pamachas. You should circle the city one time, one hakafa. You should do that for 6 days. So you circle the city, one hakafa, for 6 days. The Shiva Kehanim Yisu Shiva Shofars Hayoivlim Lifnei Haaron. And you should have 7 Kehanim escorting the Aron, each one carrying a shofar of a ram. Ubayom Hashvi, and in other words, it's not clear from Hashem's commandment, but the inference is if they're carrying a shofar, it means that they should be blow it. So they blow it to Kiyah. Ubayom Hashvi, on the 7th day, Tasayvu Sir Sheva Pamim. They should do 7 hakafas. The kahanim yisku b'shofars, and the kahanim should be blowing the shofar as a tkiyah. V'haya b'mishaych b'keren hayovel, and when the kahanim by the 7th hakafa are blowing along the tkiyah gedayla, the shamachem es kol shofar. When you hear the sound of the tkiyah that the kahanim are blowing, your real kolam trua gedayla. The people, the populace, the soldiers should blow a trua gedayla, which, by the way, there's a lot of Sfardim have the minhag, even by on Rosh Hashanah and so on, or by Yom Kippur. Instead of Tekiyah Gedayla, it's Trua Gedayla. So we're going to talk about that. Like, what's the meaning of Tekiyah Gedayla and Trua Gedayla? We'll see. So v'naf l'chai mesir tachteh. By doing this, the walls of the city will collapse on itself. and everyone, all soldiers were able to go in with full access. Okay, then the pasuk goes on where Yeshua then says over this command to the Jewish people with a little bit more detail. So if you take a look at, let's go to pasuk Tezvav. Okay, if you psukim later, so pasuk Tezvav is taking us to already the seventh day. Vahi b'yom hashvi was on the seventh day. Vayashkimu kalois hashachar. They got up very early by lois hashachar in the morning. Vayisoivu seir. It's interesting, by the way, because the psukim that described Hashem's command, we see it's clear that there was more details that for whatever reason the Navi is not telling us. Like for example, this Indian on the seventh day they had to wake up early to do this. Hashem never said that. Either it was just Ruach HaKodesh that Yehoshua ben Nun felt, or maybe Hashem told them, and for whatever reason it's not being recorded. That's the story that they wake up early. And they surrounded the city. Kamishpat hazeh sheva pamim. The same process of the Hakafas, but now 7 times. Rak b'yom hu savus yir sheva pamim. Only that day, the 7th day, they surrounded it 7 times. Vahi b'pam hashvius, and it was on the 7th time. Tekiyu akahanim b'shefaris, or the kahanim are blowing the shofar as a tekiya. Vayarmi Yeshua la'amen, by the 7th time. So now Yeshua tells the people, hariyu, make it trua, ki nasan Hashem lechem esir, because Hashem has given you the city. Well, now he says the piece of information that on his own. And you should know that the city is going to be consecrated and dedicated to Hashem. The city, everything that's in it. This is already referencing a previous story that Rachav, the Zaina that protected the spies that went into the city of Yericho earlier. So whoever's in her house, her family, and so on, should be protected. Because she protected the spies that we sent. So as a Karsatayv, she should be protected, and eventually she's Magyaris with her family and marries Yehoshua ben Nun, in fact. But you have to be careful. Yehoshua ben Nun says to the soldiers to be careful of this chayrim. In other words, to not take any of the money for yourself. Pentachrimu, maybe you, chas v'shalom, you'll be destroyed by such a thing. If you take the money for yourself. And you might cause the whole camp to be in danger. So Yericho is off limits, and it's clear from Yehoshua ben Nun's statement is that this inning of Yericho being sanctified and dedicated to Hashem is mamish a necessary component for the hatzlacha of the conquest. And he says, because if someone takes the money, the things might not be so successful. And we'll see later on, there are hiccups along the way because someone does take the money. All the precious metals and so on, they're all holy to Hashem. It should all go into the treasury of the Mishkan. So that's Yehoshua ben Nun's speech. They hear the final shofar, so fine, the Jewish people blow the trua while the tekiah is taking place. They blow it trua gedolah, the wall sinks on itself. And all the soldiers are able to go into the city. And they conquer the city. That's the basic story in paragraph. Okay, so there's a few things to think about. Again, something to remind ourselves of that we've had in previous chapters of Sefer Yehoshua. This is not just history. It's no different than a pasuk in Chumash. The Rebbeinu Shalom has revealed to us this historical event for the purposes of us learning something about our Avodas Hashem. So it's all about Avodas Hashem. So with that in mind, so let's investigate a few ha'aras about this story. First of all, B'chlal, the Rebbeinu Shalom could have done many things to allow us to conquer the city of Yericho, right? The Rebbeinu Shalom could have kept the walls intact, and miraculously we would walk through the walls. Who knows? Anything could have happened. He could have given us superpowers of jumping over the walls. Who knows? The Rebbeinu Shalom decided that the way we're going to conquer Yericho, which is the first city of Eretz Yisrael, is by turning it from a walled city into an open city. That's pretty much what it was. Get rid of the walls, and now it's an open city. Now this is an interesting thing, because b'chlal, when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, there seems to be a little bit of a stira, of a contradiction, whether walled cities are better or open cities are better. So for example, in halacha, we find, let's say, there's in halacha, obviously all of Eretz Yisrael is holy, but there are certain places in Eretz Yisrael that have a more intense level of kedusha, that they're classified as cities that are called in halacha Machne Yisrael, the camp of the Jewish people. So, for example, a Mitzayra, someone that has tzaras, it's talking this week's parsha already, Caesarea. So, a Mitzayra is not allowed to enter into a place in Eretz Yisrael that's called Machne Yisrael. He can't go into the Beis Hamikdash for sure, and he can't even go into Machne Yisrael. What's called Machne Yisrael? a walled city. A walled city. So a walled city in Eretz Yisrael has more kedusha than an open city. It's called Machne Yisrael. It's called an intenser level of kedushas Yisrael. So much so that Mitzvah can go to an open city, he can't go into a walled city. Well, that tells us that walled cities is more kedusha. It's more chashav. Yerushalayim is a walled city, right? Tivna Chaimes Yerushalayim. We daven the walls of Yerushalayim should be rebuilt. Mitzat Sheni. There's a pasuk in Navi. We're going to see about this. The pasuk says that when Mashiach comes, Prozos Teishev Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim and all of Eretz Yisrael will be able to settle as open cities. In other words, on a simple level, walled city, well, a wall, it tells you that there's a threat, right? So you have a wall to protect you. But when Mashiach comes, there's not going to be any threats, so everyone could be settling in open cities and there's nothing to worry about. So which one is it? On the one hand, you're telling me that Kedushas Eretz Yisrael is more intense in a walled city. Well, that tells you that walled cities are more chashav. Yet the Navi is prophesizing that when Mashiach comes, you're not going to have any walls. Everything is just going to be open territory. Prozos Teishev Yerushalayim. So how do we make sense of that? Okay, that's number one. Number two, this procedure of shofars being blown, Tekiah and Trua, whatever, by hakafas. Now let's appreciate what time of the year this was taking place. When was this? So Moshe Rabbeinu passes away in Zayin Adar, right? And they're waiting till after Hishleishim. This is where we saw a previous program. They waited till after Hishleishim in order to cross into Eretz Yisrael. And then they had to make Pesach. This is taking place the first day after Pesach. So right in the middle of Sefer summer, between Pesach and Shavuos. Now what's interesting is that the time that they're in is a time period of Yom Tovim of the Pesach Shavuos Yom Tovim. It's smack in the middle. It's by Sefer Summer. It's the bridge between those two Yom Tovim. And yet what the Jewish people are doing reminds us of Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, right? That's really what's going on. They're blowing shofars, which is certainly Rosh Hashanah the Ke'inyan, right? And and these things. And at the same time, it's revolving around the walls, which is Chaymas, and Chay is the same letters as Chaysim, which is a seal, that's Yom Kippur. So it's revolving around something being sealed, which is the Yom Kippur Dika Inyan, and they're doing Hakafas, which is a Sukkot Dika thing. So what seems to be happening over here, and at the same time, by the way, and it's all coming to a head on Shabbos. So what the Tzaddikim have told us, it seems to be, is that in order to conquer Yericho, what the Jewish people had to evoke, there had to be a hisayrus of Kedusha Shabbos and Kedushas Yontif. Not any particular Yontif, but just Kedushas Yontif B'chlal, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, all the Yom Tovim together. The time of the year that this was, obviously, Bashgacha Pratis. The Rebbeinu could have said, wait 6 months to do this Rosh Hashanah time. The Rebbeinu wanted them to do this right in that Tekufa of Pesach and Shavuos. So the Tekufa that they're in physically is Pesach, Shavuos season, this time of year. And what they're doing is evoking the power of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And so all the Yom Tovim are being brought over here to conquer Yerichai, and it's happening on the day of Shabbos. And Yeshua ben Nun recognizes that the significance of it being on Shabbos is not a side point. He sees that Kedusha Shabbos is a necessary ingredient over here, so much so that the city of Yerichai should be a Shabbos-tika city, that everything is set aside for Hashem. So these two things need explanation. Number one, this inyan of Yerichai being turned from a walled city into an open city, number one. And number two, why is it that to conquer Yerichai there had to be an awakening of Shabbos and Yontif? And that's how we're able to conquer the city of Yerichai. So that's the needs explanation. Also, B'chlal, this inyan of Tekiah Gedolah, and at the same time a true Gedolah is being blasted. Like, B'chlal, I mean, I guess to sum it all up, what's going on here? That's basically to sum it all up. Okay, so take a look at the Marmakom you have on the other side. Okay, so we're going to see a piece from Rabbi Nachman in Likutei Moharan. It's in Chelik Beis, Siman Ayin Tes. Okay, and then we're going to see a few pieces of Reb Tzadok to sort of take this idea from Rabbi Nachman and explain it and bring it down a little bit more on a practical level. So this piece of Rabbi Nachman is very interesting because most Torahs in Likutei Moharan were written by Rav Nosson Breslover. Rav Nachman said the Torah, and Rav Nosson wrote it down. Sometimes you'll have a Torah that Rav Nachman himself wrote, but over here is unique because this is a Torah that Rav Nosson is writing, but Rav Nosson is writing it based on a ksav yad, based on a paper that he found in the writings of his Rebbe Rav Nachman, but it seemed to have been a very shorthand draft. It was not a whole Torah that Rav Nachman wrote. It was just like Rashi Prakim. It was just like headings, just like a pasuk here, a sentence here, And Rav Nosson is trying to piece it together. Okay, so we're not going to go through the whole thing, but this is the crux of the point that Rav Nosson says he thinks Rav Nachman is trying to convey. The idea is certainly a true idea, even if there's more stuff going on in that Ksav Yad from Rav Nachman. The idea is certainly. So he says like this: V'hinei masheher Hashem einayhu. When I thought about trying to figure out what I was talking about, so Hashem illuminated my eyes, and this is what I think. What Rabbi Nachman is trying to reveal to us in this Ksav Yad is, we'll just read the words and then I'll try to explain. Shetshuva u'bechinas lamala mahazman, dahinu bittul azmanim him bechinachas. Rabbi Nachman said that, the Rebbeinu Shalom made the world in such a way, it's famous from the Vilna Gaon, Bereshis bar Elokim, right? In the beginning Hashem created. The Vilna Gaon said, Bereshis means that the first thing Hashem created was Reshis, was time itself. So there's such a thing as man, there's such a thing as time, right? Well, we know the Rebbeinu Shalom is Lamal min Hazman, right? Haya, Hayv, Hashem is, was, and will be. It's Lamal min Hazman. I spoke about this Friday night a little bit, that the nature of Avodas Hashem, there's a klal of Avodas Hashem, is that the more prat you go, the more constricted you are in terms of going smaller and smaller and smaller, the more din you find. The more details a person gets stuck in, the more very often they become frustrated and in a bad mood. But when you go on vacation and there's just like a nice, large open space that you're visiting, there's a certain harchavas hadas. The larger you step out, the less din there is, the less constriction, the less difficulty, the less Yetzer Hara there seems to be in that open area, in that open headspace. So there's such a thing as man, and there's such a thing as lamal min hazman, right? So time is very, very constricted. Time is very constricted. Time means that if it's Sunday right now, it's not Monday. And if it's Sunday, it's not Shabbos. That's what time means. Time means you're stuck in this particular moment and there's no way out of it. On the other hand, you have lamal min hazman, above time and space. I don't know what that means, but I could just imagine that above time and space where Sunday is lav davka Sunday, everything is just one, that's a much broader experience. It's a much broader experience. Therefore, Rabbi Nachman is about to say that the area, the domain in which the Yetzer Hara exists, the domain in which evil exists, where difficulties exist, where enemy exists, it's within Zman. Because Zman means constricted, it means small, it means tiny, it means you're stuck in this particular place and you can't move in or out. It's details, this detail and that detail, this moment, this second, that second. And that's the breeding ground for din. That's the breeding ground for the Yetzer Hara. Whereas the area that's the dimension that's above time and space, that's big, the bigger you get, the less the Yetzer Hara exists. That's the idea. Again, Rav Tzadok is going to bring this all the way down Lamaisa, but let's just see the words of Rabbi Nachman again. Rabbi Nachman is trying to reveal to us that tshuva and this dimension, what's above time, that's nullifying any particular moment to this larger, eternal beginning, middle, and end. Klal, it's one in. When a person does tshuva, Rabbi Nachman is telling us, tshuva is accessing l'mal min hazman. Even though you're in a certain time period, and obviously you can't, you're not literally time traveling in a physical sense, but on some level you are, because what is tshuva? Tshuva is something went wrong on Monday, and Tuesday you're fixing Monday. How in the world can you fix Monday? Monday's gone. You're not in Monday. The answer is, in tachas hazman, in the world of Bereshis, Monday is Monday, and that's not accessible anymore. And now you're stuck in the individual, compartment that's called Tuesday, and that's it. And you can't get out of that little closet. You can't get out of that little corner. But the concept of tshuva, is the Rebbeinu Shalom revealed to us, is that although we were created after Bereshis, but there's a part of us that's still connected to above Zman. There's a part of us that's connected to above past, present, and future, where everything is still one. And tshuva gives us access to that place. And when you access that place, then you're in Tuesday, but you could be in Monday too. And you could do tshuva and fix and correct what happened, what went wrong on Monday, and then Monday's mamash taken care of. And as far as the Rebbeinu Shalom is concerned, Monday's perfect, and nothing went wrong. That's also, by the way, the difference between our mindset everyone knows the Gemara. Everyone knows Chazal say that about Tshuva is much greater than a tzaddik. But people want to do shidduchim with tzaddikim, right? Not Bali Tshuva, right? Why? Because we're still stuck in Zman. So as much as we believe that on Tuesday you could fix Monday, we're like, okay, it's a nice shmooze, it's a nice bumper sticker, but Lamaisa Monday is still broken, right? That's all because we're stuck in Tachas Azman. But the truth is, Chazal telling us the truth. The truth is that no, there's such a bechina, there's a place that's called Lamalman Azman that we have access to, and in that place above time and space, Monday is right now. And Monday being right now is what happened before is malleable. Past, present, and future is not fixed at all. It's all one big entity of Lamal and Azman. That's what Shuv is. Va'idezeh, and says Rabbi Nachman, not only does accessing that place of Lamal and Azman give you the ability to fix the past, but the more you could access that mindset of Lamal and Azman, the more strength you'll have in tackling the present in a healthier way. Because again, the higher you go, the more klal, the bigger you become, and the less stuck in specifics, right? Then the less Yetzer Hara exists in those domains, and the stronger you are. So if you want, in other words, the guy, being tachas azman, being in the world of time, past, present, and future, and you're sort of stuck in that place, that's the petri dish of Yetzer Hara. That's the petri dish of evil. Evil thrives in smallness. It thrives in smallness. So if you want to be able to overcome Yetzer Hara, you want to overcome evil, the biggest strategy is to become bigger, is to get out of smallness. Because in smallness, you're in his territory. But if you could get to a big space, then what? Then Adrabah. In a big space, Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Hara doesn't have oxygen in that place. It's slowly dying when you move the conflict to a bigger space. In a bigger space, the Yetzer Hara can't thrive. So not only does connecting to Lamal and Azman help you to fix a past mistake, it gives you the strength to overcome the Yetzer Hara right now. Because that place, the Yetzer Hara doesn't really exist as much. Yeah.
Remember you an example of Marchavas, like on vacation. If you think less of Yetzer Hara, you also think less of Hashem too on vacation.
Well, yeah, vacation is not necessarily a great example. We're gonna see more. Tzaddik is going to give us better examples than a vacation. But I was giving that as an example of certain, because the Yetzer Hara is obviously religious, but stress is also din, and that could very often be softened when a person has that harchava. But you're right; that's not a religious example. We're going to give religious examples soon. Okay, so let's see where he goes. So again, this is all just a concept yet. Okay, so what does that mean? Getting Lamal and Azman, very nice in concept. Where's the address of such a place that I could go to where the Yetzer Hara is going to try to follow me, but he won't be able to so much? What does that mean to get to Lamal and Azman? But let's just work through Rabbi Nachman, and then Tzaddik is going to tell us, but we'll see. So again, second line, Va'idezeh, by connecting to that place that's called Lamal and Azman, Zaychel Shmoy HaKol de Kedusha, then you could finally listen and hear the sound of Kedusha, Ulachni HaKol de Sitra Achra, and subdue the sound of the Yetzer Hara. So in other words, even right now, there's like voices in our heads, right? There's the sound of the Yetzer Tov and the sound of the Yetzer Hara, and they're both making a lot of noise. So how do I put myself in a position where the sound of the Yetzer Tov is stronger, but the sound of the Yetzer Hara is more faint? It's more from a distance. The answer is go to Lamal and Azman. Because when you go to Lamal and Azman, the Yetzer Tov can go there, but the Yetzer Hara can't. So the Yetzer Hara is going to be screaming from Tachas Azman, right? And he's going to be screaming to you, but already it's like, I can't really make out what he's saying. So you get to that higher place where the Yetzer Hara doesn't exist, and then you'll be able to hear more clearly the sound of the Yetzer Tov, and you won't be able to hear as much the sound of the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so he says like this: V'chein mavur b'sefer midas, and it says Rav Nassan. This is something that Rav Nachman also told us in another sefer called Sefer Midas. Zel Shainai. Over there, it's recorded: Yom sha'adam oiseh tshuva, the day that a person does tshuva, hu l'mal mazman. He's above time. Umala kol hayom l'mal mazman, and you're all the things that you're doing tshuva about. You're taking all those time periods and also bringing them l'mal mazman, so you can fix them. The kol hatzaros v'hadinim v'achizas asitra achra, and again, the domain, the place, the place that the petri dish within which tsaris and dinim and the sitra achra is able to thrive, the place that it's able to breathe, hurak b'chinas hazman. It's in the place hazman. But if you could connect to Lamal and Hazman, not only is that from a place that you could fix past mistakes, but over there the Yetzer Hara can't exist and then he's calling to you, from a distance already, and his voice is not as strong. Shazel, and that's the meaning of the pasuk. It's an amazing thing. The pasuk says it's a harsh pasuk, but Hashem says that when it's going to be ba'achris hayam, the end of days, it's going to be difficult and constricted. Right before Mashiach comes, it's going to be difficult. So he says, Davka, what does it mean ba'achris hayam? We call Mashiach like the end of days. The end of days. The end of days, like it means very, very tachas hazman. Achris hayam. Yamim b'chlal, days means zman, means time, past, present, and future. Right. Achris yam means when there's a very heavy dosage of zman, of smallness, that's b'tzar l'chum mitzucha, that itself allows tzaris to breed. Shezel b'chinas zman, but then when you get into that place, v'shavta ad Hashem, you got to do tshuva, you got to get out of zman. Then sheniska loshav, you have to do tshuva. V'aydeza niska levatal zman, then you're able to get out of zman. V'az yispatu kol tzaris v'adinim b'chol achizis zitra achra, and then all the dinim are nullified. V'niska l'shmoya kol dekdusha, and you're able to hear the sound of Hashem. B'bechinas v'shavta ad Hashem l'kecha b'shemata b'kailai. You do tshuva, then the voice that you're going to hear is the voice of Hashem, the voice of the Yetzer Tov, not the voice of the Yetzer, because it's coming from a far off place. Now, again, before we explain what this means lamaisa, let's plug it in to the story of Yerichai. Let's appreciate. This is, again, as I said, the first city that the Jewish people are conquering. The conquest of, when the Jewish people are fighting a physical war, it always means, it's always reflective of the Jewish soul fighting a spiritual war. And so the nations of Canaan that are settled in Eretz Yisrael represent all the sounds of the Yetzer Hara, all the temptations, all the difficulty of the Yetzer Hara. And what did Rabbi Nachman tell us? In order to put yourself in a position of strength to fight the Yetzer Hara and to allow the voice of Kedusha to be more strong, to have that stronger sound and overwhelm the sound of the Yetzer Hara, you have to put yourself in a place that's Lamal Min Hazman. That's exactly what the Jewish people were doing over here. Why? What's the inyan of Shabbos and Yantif? So we're going to see this from Rav Tzaddik in Marmukah number 2, but just I'll tell you outside quickly and then we'll see it together. The inyan of Shabbos and Yantif means to connect us to an old past. What's the old past? Of Adam Rishon in Gan Eden. Adam Rishon was put in Gan Eden, on a Friday, right? And Adam Rishon in Gan Eden was told by Hashem on Friday, La'avdu l'shamra, that you have to get to work, you have to work. But what was the work of Adam in Gan Eden? It wasn't actually going to work. The work of Adam in Gan Eden, Chazal say, was to keep mitzvahs. La'avda meant to keep the 248 positive mitzvahs, and l'shamra meant to keep the 365 negative mitzvahs. That was the avodah, that was the work of Adam in Gan Eden on that Friday. And then it would come Shabbos, Mamish Menucha. Rav Tzaddik writes in Marmukah number 2 in Machshavas Charetz, page 149, that every Shabbos in this world that we have right now, and every Yontif that we have, is the Rabbanu Shalom giving us a little bit of a time machine and a throwback to that old Kufa, that old history of being in Gan Eden. This is why on Shabbos there's no work at all. What's the name of Shabbos? Shabbos is a reminder. It's not just reminding us that Hashem created the world. It's literally taking the Jewish people and each person and taking you out of the Zman that you're in and giving you the ability to access an old Kufa, an old past, which is Gan Eden. Every Yontif, says Rav Tzaddik, is also like that. Yontif is reflective of what? Of Adam Rishon's Avodah in Gan Eden, which is that there's also work on Yontif. What's the work on Yontif? Mitzvahs. So for example, Shabbos doesn't have any mitzvahs, right? There's no practical, there's no physical mitzvahs that we do on Shabbos. The mitzvah of Shabbos is to rest. That's reflective of what Shabbos would have been in Gan Eden, what Shabbos was in Gan Eden, right? And then we have Yom Tovim. All the Yom Tovim is also days of work. But what type of work? Not the type of work that we associate of this world, of this time right now. It's the work that the Rabbanu Shalom wanted Adam Rishon to be involved in Gan Eden, which is the work of mitzvahs. So Pesach, we work. We work by eating matzah and maror and daled kaisis and talking about Yitzias Mitzrayim. And Sukkot, we also work by sitting in a sukkah and shaking Muvan Esrog. And Rosh Hashanah, we work by blowing shofar. It's also work. But it's not the work of going to work like we think of it right now. It's the work that the Rabbanu Shalom planned on giving Adam if he did not sin in Gan Eden. So in other words, what's happening by Shabbos and Yontiv is that the Jewish people are being given access to that place that's Lamal Min Hazman. Where right now you're stuck in a world that's post Gan Eden. And in the world of Tachas Hazman, of time, It's Sunday. It's not Monday. It's Tuesday. It's not Monday. It's Thursday. It's not Wednesday. Whatever it is, you're stuck in where you are. But the ability of the Jewish people to sort of recapture the experience of Gan Eden on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, where work itself is redefined as just doing mitzvahs. Whereas after this, right? Because again, understand that in Gan Eden, the Rebbeinu Shalom also had Adam Rishon do work. There was also the idea of working, but what was the work then? Like I said, just doing mitzvahs. Once you get kicked out of Gan Eden, now work is redefined as what we call work, making parnasa. But Shabbos and Yom Tov, the Rebbeinu Shalom is a throwback. It takes us back to that original tekufa of what work meant. In other words, we're mamish back in Gan Eden on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And so how do we do that? Like, what's the mechanism? The answer is because what's happening in Shabbos and Yom Tov, we're taken to that place of Lamal and Azman. And at that point of Lamal and Azman, then you're not stuck in the moment that you're in right now. You could easily go back in time to Gan Eden. And at the same time, what's happening with Yerichai is that Yerichai is also being converted in what? Into an open city, which is reflective of a distant future. As I said, Prozais Teishav Yerushalayim, that when Mashiach comes, all of Eretz Yisrael is going to be established as open cities, as walls, as open cities that you're able to live in without any walls. So what's happening by the conquest of Yerichai are two extreme things. On the one hand, the Jewish people are reconnecting to an old past of Gan Eden, and also connecting to a way distant future of Mashiach where everything is open cities. How do you do that? The only way to do that, to connect an old past with a distant future, is by connecting to a place like Lamal and Hazman. And that itself was the necessary component to allow us to conquer Yerichai. Because again, to conquer Yerichai means to be able to silence the voice of the Yetzer Hara, to overwhelm the voice of the Yetzer Hara with the voice of the Yetzer Tov, to give us the strength and the confidence and the positioning to overcome our spiritual enemies in a forceful way, and the position that a person should have to allow yourself to conquer your spiritual enemies in a powerful way is from a place of Lamal and Azman. And so that's what's being accessed over here with Yerichai. And therefore everything is being set up in such a way to give the Jewish people a sense of what? Of past and future at the same time. Where right now they're holding already by in the middle of world history. It's way after Gan Eden and it's way before Mashiach. But yet at this moment, that old past of Gan Eden, which is Shabbos and Yom Tov, and the distant future of every part of Eretz Yisrael being open cities, are being brought together and allowing the Jewish people to be from that place of Lamal and Azman to conquer Yerichai and to conquer the enemies. Nachla b'li mitzarm, expansiveness, an openness, infinite, beginning, middle, and end, 100%. Okay, so that's the idea. That's the idea. What does this mean, Lamaisa? So it's a nice, metaphysical idea. You get to Lamal and Azman, and from that place of strength, we're past, which is Shabbos and Yom Tov, taking you to Gan Eden, and distant future of open cities of Eretz Yisrael with Mashiach Tzidkenu, they come together, and now you could conquer Yerichai. By the way, that's also the meaning, just before we get to Lamaisa, what this means, that's also the connection of the Tekiah Gedalah and the Trua Gedalah. Tekiah Gedalah always means Lamal and Hazman. It's just one stream of sound. It's not broken into a million pieces. It's that perspective of klal, of big, of past, present, future, of one. And so every single hakafa the Kahanim are making, especially on the seventh day, 7 hakafas, they're trying to manifest, they're trying to bring to reality that dimension of Lamal and Hazman. And in that context, the Jewish people on the 7th hakafa, the 7th day, blow a Trua Gedalah. Trua Gedalah means Zman. It means broken up. And what the Jewish people are doing is trying to unite these two worlds, of allowing the Tekiah Gedalah, that dimension of above time and space, to make it Lamaisa, to unite it with our practical experience. And a person should be able, and through the Jewish people blowing a Trua Gedalah, at the same time a Tekiah Gedalah is happening, what the Jewish people are doing is bringing that energy of Lamal Mahazman all the way to Tachas Hazman, in a tangible sense in our world. And that's what allows the walls of Yerichai to collapse and are able to conquer the city in a straightforward way, by evoking the power of Lamal Mahazman and channeling it, Lamaisa, in a practical sense of Tachas Hazman. That's the Tekiah Gedalah and the Trua Gedalah. What does this mean, halacha l'maisa? What's the avoid of this? Okay, so take a look. We'll end with it. Take a look at Marmukah number 4. Okay, this is from also a piece from Rav Tzaddik in Dover Tzaddik, page 84. Tzaddik says like this. He's talking about Chazal say Ezu Gibor, a kovish is Yitzhar, right? That a Gibor is someone that's able to conquer the Yitzhar. So he says an amazing thing. Hagavur de kvishas haYitzhar. The real strength that a person needs to conquer the Yitzhar, to conquer Yericho, is what? Tzarech mikaydem betach b'Hashem. It has to come from a place of absolute confidence in the Rabbanu Shlalem that you will win. That you will win. In other words, it's like in sports. You can have a team. It's March Madness. It's March, right? It's March Madness. You could have a team. Just saying, if you could have a team that they have no shot, like all the analysts, all the chachamim will tell you they have no shot at all, and maybe they don't have a shot, and they probably won't win. But if you ask the players, not only will they tell you we have a shot, they say, "Of course, we're gonna win. We're gonna win," and they're right. They're right that that's the mindset they have to have in order to have even the possibility of winning. Rav Tzaddik says, lahavdil, just as a mashal, Rav Tzaddik says it's the same thing with Avodas Hashem. A person, in order to have the gevura, to be able to conquer the Yitzhara, you have to connect yourself to a reality that you see an old past that was before this enemy, and you see a distant future that's after this enemy. You have to have that confidence, that bitachon, that I will win this. This enemy ultimately will come and go, and I'm going to be the last man standing. On a historical sense, that's definitely true with the Jewish people, right? The Romans, the Babylonians, and we're the ones that remain. That's true for Klal Yisrael, and it's true for every individual Jew as well. Any Yetzirah, any issue, any threat, any enemy that we find, we're stronger than it. We came before it, and we'll be here after it. And that's what it means to connect to Lamal Mahazman. Instead of it being this mystical, esoteric idea of somehow being in Gan Eden on the one hand, and also being a Mashiach side at the same time, and somehow being in that place of above time and space, now you could conquer Yericho, you could conquer your enemies on a human level. What it means is that in order to engage the enemy properly, you have to remind yourself that you came before this enemy and you'll be here after this enemy. And now it's just a matter of working it out. I'm trying, just getting there, working out the details, you know what I mean? But I am bigger than this, I'm stronger than this, and I know that I will win. This is where Tzaddik says, "Hagavur de kvishas haYitzhar," the gavur that's necessary to conquer the Yitzhar, tzarech mikaydem betach b'Hashem. You have to have a bitachon in the Rabbanu Shlalem. You have to have confidence in the Rabbanu Shlalem. What does that mean? Kitam. He says that we find this in Aseret Dibros. First, Hashem said, "Anochi Hashem Elokecha." I am Hashem your God. Not even a command. It's just a reality. I am Hashem your God, meaning I'm before all of this balagan in the world, and I'm after all this balagan in the world. You connect yourself to that truth. And then we could begin to talk about details. Don't have this God, don't do this wrong. Then already you could engage with the enemy, but you have to allow yourself to engage with the enemy properly. You have to put yourself in a position of absolute confidence that I'm bigger than this. I come before this and I come after this. And now, from that larger perspective of who I am and where I'm coming from, where I'm headed, so now I'm involved in this small thing. But if you lose sight of where you come from and you lose sight of where you're headed, then what? And then you see yourself then the Yitzhar is mamish even to you. That's a big threat. You might not win. But you have to make yourself bigger than the enemy. And it's not just a trick. That's the truth. The truth is, we taka come before. Nishmas Yisrael comes before this world, and Nishmas Yisrael will remain after this world. And right now, we're stuck in this little place. So you connect to the Tekiah Gedolah, you connect to that everlasting long Tekiah of past, present, future, much bigger. And in that, while that Tekiah Gedolah is sounding, then you could blow your trua and engage in the enemy. But you engage in the enemy when part of your mind is thinking, I'm bigger than this anyway. It's just a matter of time until I win. And even if you lose the battle, you'll win the war. When you connect to the ultimate past, that you come before this place, you come from Gan Eden. And the ultimate future of what? Which is Shabbos and Yom Tov, right? And the ultimate future of what? Of open cities throughout Eretz Yisrael, which is where Mashiach will come. You're reminding yourself that I come before the enemy ever came, and I will exist after the enemy will be destroyed. Okay, so now I'm just dealing with him right now. It's a temporary zach. while the Tekiah Gedolah is blasting, then in that context, I could blow a trua. So he says like this, but if a person doesn't have the confidence and the strength and the security that comes from Anochi Hashem Elokecha, from what? From the Tekiah Gedolah, from Shabbos and Yontif taking you to Gan Eden, and open cities taking you to Mashiach, then what? Then you're not going to be able to be successful in all the mitzvahs of not having another God and all the milchamis hayetzer that we have. When it's not open, it's not clear to you that you're connected to a truth that comes before this and comes after this. The dover zeh efshar. And therefore, to conquer the enemy is impossible. It's only possible by someone that's absolutely firm in their bitachon, in their Rabban Shalom. What's the bitachon? That first of all, the Rabban Shalom can help us. That's Aleph. And there's nothing really to be worried about. There's nothing really to be worried about because this enemy, worst case scenario, it's like Yaakov Avinu will be limping, but the sun will rise and you'll be healed. Ultimately, you'll win. And that confidence of knowing that you ultimately will win because you come before this anyway. So fine. And that's how you engage the enemy with confidence. Just like that, unknown college team that should not even be in the tournament, but they are, and they think they are, and they think that they will win. Over there, it's takadimi. Because they might not be roy for such a thing. But by us, as big as the enemy might seem, the truth is, it's mamash nothing. There's nothing really to worry about. And there's no situation in life where we should not hope for Hashem's help, where we shouldn't be confident that Hashem will help us. Someone that Taka has such a confidence, that's a person that could have inner calm and inner peace. That's where it comes from. And then you could conquer Yericha. So again, to sum it all up, that's what's going on. So the Jewish people are entering Yericha, and the way to enter Yericha to engage in the first enemy, not the first enemy of Eretz Yisrael, which is reflective of a spiritual enemy from within, is you first have to remind yourself of that you come before the enemy, that you have a distant past that you're still connected to. That's Gan Eden, and that's what Shabbos and Yontif is, right? Shabbos and Yontif are times where the Rebbeinu Shalom reminds us that old history of being in Gan Eden, where there is no work and there is no problems, there is nothing to fix, everything is mamash gevaldik, and the biggest work that you have to do is just do mitzvahs. That's not a distant past. That you can connect to that past right now. That Shabbos and Yontif, and at the same time, we're going with the hope and the dream that through Shabbos and Yontif and so on, the Yericha will turn into an open city, which is reminding us of what's going to be with Mashiach. So now all of a sudden, the Jewish people are in the mindset. They're Shabbos and Yontif mode. They're connecting. They're reminding themselves that we come before the enemy. But still, we have history in Gan Eden, and the walls are collapsed. We're reminding ourselves what's going to be in the future of Mashiach. We're now in the mindset of Lamal Mahazman, from that place of absolute bitachon in our eternity. Then you could engage the enemy, and then all of a sudden, the sound of Hashem's voice is much more clear, much stronger than the sound of the Yetzer, because the Yetzer is now tiny. He exists in that small little space that's mamish tiny compared to where you come from. And that's what's going with Yericha, yeah.
What's the significance in having the Yericha on the wall?
So the open cities is reflective of what's going to be with Mashiach. See, let me go back to explain. Nowadays, when there's still an enemy, that's when you need walls to protect you. But when Mashiach comes, you're not going to have any enemies. You could be confident and secure. Having Yericha turned into an open city is it's connecting Jewish people to that distant future of Mashiach. So these are the two things that are happening. Shabbos and Yontif is reminding us of our distant past, and the open city of Yericha being turned into an open city is reminding us of a distant future. That's past, future being brought together. That's Lamal Ma'azman. That gives a Jew confidence, and he could conquer Yericha. Okay? Yeah.